Never mind what President Cyril Ramaphosa and most of the media say, South Africa does not have a government of national unity. It has a coalition, or to be precise, a grand coalition, which means that the largest party, the former ruling party, and the largest opposition have come together with a few bits and pieces as well among the 18 parties in the present parliament. It is therefore a grand coalition or a coalition, not a GNU. And a GNU, a GNU, as anyone who knows anything about wildlife knows, is actually known as a wildebeest, one of those spindly-looking characters with like buffalo-type horns. And that's quite, I think, symbolic for what has happened to Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC. They've come down from the once mighty, unbeatable ANC, because those who will remember, Cyril Ramaphosa's one nickname is Mac Buffalo. Mac, because he happens to own the franchise to the fast food McDonald's outlets. And Buffalo, because that's what he breeds, buys and sells at great amounts of money from his farm, his Pala Pala farm in the north of the country. This is a farm, some may recall, where some $500,000 in US currency found its way into a couch, into a sofa in a guest living room where it was stolen. And in circumstances that were investigated in a very peculiar way and in a manner that is still not satisfactorily explained. And it is something that may come to haunt the president in the coming parliament, certainly if the Economic Freedom Fighter group have their way, because they want to have the president impeached for having mishandled money or somehow got involved in laundering or whatever. We shall see what happens. Far from a government of national unity, we have a large number, including the third largest party now in parliament, the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, MKP, which are totally opposed, of course, to President Ramaphosa, and they're aligned with the EFF, Al-Jamaa, and a couple of African nationalist groupings, Pan-Africanist groups, grossly misnamed Progressive Caucus. And they will be obviously making a lot of trouble, if they can, for not just Cyril Ramaphosa, but for the Democratic Alliance, which was the former opposition and the second largest party, who've also had their problems. One of their members of parliament, sworn in at the inauguration of the new parliament, a man called Ronaldo Gous, turned out to be a rabid racist and homophobe who discovered the internet and discovered Twitter some 16 years ago and went onto Twitter, I think forgetting that once that stuff is up there, it's up there. And he ranted on to kill various people of darker complexion, as well as any faggots, as he called anyone who happened to be gay. When this was outed, he had never apologized. The allegation was these were fakes. They proved not to be. And so from the sidelines came the screech from Helen Zille, the federal chief of the Democratic Alliance, saying, if these are true, he's out. Well, he is out. So he must be the first parliamentarian sworn in to Parliament who never got to take his seat because he was evicted before he could even get there. That's within the DA. Now, the DA, of course, are daggers drawn with the EFF, but also with a number of other people in another alliance, coalition, actually. And that is the ANC-led alliance with the Congress of South African Trade Unions and the South African Communist Party, known as the ANC-led alliance. They are not at all happy with the DA, let alone anything else. And then you have, as I say, the so-called caucus. And outside of that, there are only three parties that I can see. That is the Action SA, Action South Africa, the Build One South Africa, and Rise Mzansi, who have kept themselves at a distance and remained fairly sensible in their comments, and one of which, Rise Mzansi, actually calls itself social democratic. which sounds left, although it's not really a left party. In fact, there is no left. Left, right, and centre doesn't really make that much sense in the present South African context. There's plenty of centre, muddled centre, a great deal of confusion, a lot of what might be called classically, from an economic and political viewpoint, to the right in terms of authoritarian, free marketeers, etc. And of course, we have one of the people who was part of the original Progressive Caucus, or close to them, was Gayton Mackenzie and his Patriotic Alliance. He decamped to this grand coalition, along with, of course, the Pan-Africanist Congress with their one seat has also gone there. Now, why would they go there? Well, that's where the money is. And it is money that is probably the glue that will hold this thing together for any length of time. It is possible that it will disintegrate and fragment. That's true. It's also probable that it'll hang on. For the very simple reason, when one looks at the economics, an ordinary backbench MP who just has to sit there, toe the party line, and perhaps fall asleep in Parliament, is paid 1.17 million rand a year. That's just the basic pay, on top of which come the perks, the car allowance, domestic help, laptop, cell phone, and 60, I think it is, free airfares around the country. All in all, a package worth at least 2 million rand. This in a country where the basic minimum wage is just 25 rand 40 cents an hour, which makes it a little more than 4,000 rand a month. No wonder people are angry. No wonder only a minority of politically conscious, perhaps, people voted. 16 million people voted out of a potential electorate of 40. And the others, well, they're not just apathetic or have gone to sleep or decided to do nothing. There are plenty of what are called service protests. Streets get barricaded, the occasional councillor's house gets burned down, etc. So people are angry, and with justification. So I think that is what we have to look at as the glue that may hold this rather fractious and muddled coalition together. Take, for example, the basic wage, the minimum wage. The ANC is solidly behind the minimum wage and established it. The DA, its major partner, is opposed to a minimum wage. So even at that level, we have difficulty. Then we have major difficulty, for example, over the one foreign affairs venture that the ANC successfully did and was hailed for by human rights organizations around the world, and that was taking the issue of Gaza and what is happening there, the genocide issue, to the International Court. The Patriotic Alliance, which is headed by a former bank robber, confessed gangster who spent 17 years in prison and then became a nightclub owner, businessman, and now politician, he and his former prison mate, Kenny Kunene, founded the Patriotic Alliance, which is proudly xenophobic, but which now claims to be a fundamentally Christian organization that unquestioningly supports Israel and what the Netanyahu government is doing in Gaza. How does this fit? Well, once again, I come back to the possible glue of Luca, of snouts in the trough, and I suspect that that could keep the coalition together. So it's possible it may fragment. It's probable that it will continue, at least until the next local government elections in 2 years' time. Then we shall have to see what actually happens. Because we have not only the Umkhonto we Sizwe party, whose leader, the former President Jacob Zuma, could not take his seat in Parliament because he's already been sentenced to a prison term of 15 months for contempt of court. The fact that he also has a large number of charges of corruption, money laundering, racketeering, etc. still to face is beside the point. So who will lead the MKP into Parliament. It was announced that it would be led by John Hlophe. Who's John Hlophe? Why, John Hlophe is the former Chief Justice of the Western Cape, who was impeached for unethical conduct. In other words, he was tossed out of the judiciary, one of the first judges ever to face this punishment, impeached because of work he did apparently for Jacob Zuma. This is perhaps payback time. He will lead the MKP into Parliament. And then you have, adjoining them, the Red Berets, the Economic Freedom Fighters. And their newest member, new member of Parliament, who has been there before, he was an ANC member way back in the 90s, is Carl Niehaus, South Africa's most notorious fantasist, who has owed money left, right, and center all over the show, whose mother allegedly died and he collected money for it. His father allegedly, they're both, as far as I know, they may still be alive as far as I know. It doesn't really matter. That Carl Niehaus is there now, having given up his designer clothes for gumboots, red overalls, and a red hard hat. So there's wonderful material, and there will be a wealth of material for cartoonists and satirists, but it'll all be rather sad, I'm afraid, because until and unless the promises, which were all made again, the same old promises like a cracked record about jobs for all, healthcare for all, etc., will come to nothing. That is certain. I can say that with a degree of certainty, that nothing much is going to happen over the next couple of years. And if it doesn't fragment and they last for 5 years, who knows? Perhaps by then, one of those three parties, Rise Mzansi, Bosa, Action SA, may even get together or whatever, and may actually put together some more sensible type of alternative, out of which may grow a real alternative, a real democratic alternative. We'll just have to wait and see.